So I hope everyone enjoyed their summers. It's been a couple months since we've had a meetup. We've had to cancel the last two due to vacations and other personal reasons, but glad everyone's here now and we're all back at it. So today we have Sergio Brito from Xebia. He's giving a presentation on design patterns in TypeScript and Angular. But before we start that, I'm going to say a quick thing about Cabbage. So right now we're in Cabbage's office here in Midtown. This is our headquarters. We are a financial tech company who provide loans and other financial services to small businesses using our automated platform. And we are hiring. There's a page out front of all the positions, but our tech stack is .NET on the back end, C#, TypeScript, JavaScript on the front end, and Angular as our front-end framework. But yeah, so grab me if you're curious or interested about Cabbage. Also, I think wanted to mention an event we have coming up. All right, so with that, I'll hand it off.
Hey, hello. Well, my name is Sergio Brito. You can reach me in Twitter as YakaFX. It's a kind of weirdo nickname. This means Yaka because in Mexico we're used to use a lot of gods, ancient gods. And in the place that I am studying, the principal god is the kind of the marketing god, something like that. So it's the Yakatecutli. So I like to use the Yaka. And the FX because I came from the word of flex. Somebody here use flex sometime? Hello. Yes? Okay. So that's the reason that I am using FX because I started working with Flex since 1999. So when I discovered that, before to be formal Flex, it was for another company. But well, so right now we are talking about design patterns. I will try to share my experience that I have with the design patterns in the Angular world, in the TypeScript world. So I hope that that works for you. But first, what I like to say this, I'm instructor too in LinkedIn Learning. So if you go to LinkedIn Learning, you can find my courses. Unfortunately, so far it's in Spanish, but we are working in translated to English. So I hope so by the end of the year, you can find that courses in English. We are talking about a lot of JavaScript and Angular and anything related to JavaScript. I'm a consultant at Xebia. It's a Dutch company located here, but my full role here is in Delta Airlines. Okay, so in Delta, I'm a part of the front-end developer teams, and we are coding the part of the .com website. So all the process for manage the flights, tickets, blah, blah, all that kind of things is the part of the thing that I'm doing here. And well, I'm a kind of full stack developer, but now I'm focused on the Angular. Also, I love play football and like football. Yes, so I'm a big 49ers fan. I love food, so can you see? And well, this is a dish named jalea. It's a kind of Peruvian food. So if you have time someday to try Peruvian food, please go. Don't hesitate and go and taste it. It's delicious. Actually, my wife is from Peru. That's the reason that I got married with her. So yes, well, travel, football, movies, bike, etc. Okay, but well, now I'm gonna go exactly in the theme that we like. Okay. So, do you remember this to Sheldon Cooper, Fun with Flags? Well, everybody, it's really having fun. Okay, what we can find here? We can find patterns. What pattern? Not just the movement, the flag per se. Okay, so we can find patterns in all parts of the world. And actually, I have the idea that all the is filled with patterns. Now again, just I'm turning on. Okay, but what is change now? A design pattern? Well, it's a typical solution for common problems. Okay, actually, you can tell that in your code right now, you are already using patterns. Maybe you don't get notice, but you are using it. Okay, so it's more popular here in TypeScript when we are working with object-oriented design. And actually, it's kind of easy to identify because when you start to detect something that is repeated and repeated and repeated again, voila, you have a new pattern there. So you can grab there, you can perform certain modules, or you can perform certain actions, and then you have the pattern for there. Okay. So if you go and think in your own code, the code that you have now, maybe you can detect certain pieces of the code that you already have repeated. So if you make a certain refactor of your code, then maybe you can create your own pattern. So this is the fun part of this. Also, a pattern, it's a blueprint that you can customize, okay? And move from one part. You can move from one part, and then you can move it, and then you can do whatever you want it to do. The goal here is to reach for the proper solution in your requirement, in your final requirement, okay? So we need to understand really what is not a pattern, because this is something that we commonly use to have this misconception sometimes. First, it's not a library. It's not something that we can run under npm, run install, blah, blah. It's not a library, so don't think in that part. Also, it's not a specific piece of code. So it's not something that you can grab from there and put in there. Okay, the code is involved. You can grab some code and you can adapt that code and then you can use it. Yes, but it's not just a simple or a standard code that you can use time to time. So you need to adapt it. Okay, what is this? It's a general concept for solve. Okay, so you can have the concept for solve something, and then you can adapt it, and then you can use it. And then this kind of pattern can apply for, in this case, for many languages. For example, you can use the mediator, or you can use the singleton, and you can use the same structure of the code across many languages. Okay, so if you want to adapt, for example, singleton in Angular, we are using just a simple service. Just if you want to use it that, for example, in C#, you can have that part on C#. Okay. Now, we can find this other thing that maybe we can cause some confusion. This is, okay, algorithm versus patterns, okay? Looks similar, do kind of similar things, but it's not the same, okay? What I mean, I can tell that maybe a pattern can include an algorithm, but an algorithm, most of the time, not include a pattern, okay? Most of the time, not always, okay? So, for example, in an algorithm, we define the same steps for solve any problem. For example, if we have a data structure, with the data structure, we can use an if, we can use a while, we can use any kind of data structure, and always we're solving the same problem. But, au contraire, the pattern is a high-level description of certain solution, okay? in that description of certain solution, you can say, for example, in this image, you can see bike. This bike, we have the biggest wheel in the front and the smallest in the back. But maybe we can change it, and we can have some fun if we change that part, and it's still working. It's still a bike, okay? So we can think pattern just for a high-level description of a solution, okay? So both of them have the clear steps to achieve the goal. In both, we can reach to the same goals all the time. For example, right now, we face any problem, right now we face a problem when we are trying to communicate different components across a one application, and this application starts to slow down. Why? Because we are implementing RGXS, and there all the data is start to stack, and we have a big amount of data. When we can then, for solve that, we implement a mediator pattern, and the mediator can help us to speed up the flow of data only in the top level of the components. Yes, and so in the TRX store, we only leave to store the data by the end. When we finish to work with the data, then we save it in there. Okay, so the mediator can help, the pattern can help us to many things. Okay, also this can give us more certainty on the results. I mean, if you implement, in this case, as I told you, the mediator, then you can know that you can have all the flow in the proper way. And also you can have the same. For example, if you are using a decorator, you can know that all decorator that you are using in any class always has the same results. It's a decorator, okay? So all the patterns has this kind of pattern. A pattern has a pattern. That's interesting thing. And what is that? First, there is an intent to explain the certain problems. Has the motivation. Actually, the motivation is one of the best part of this, because when you are facing a problem, then you started to describing the solution. And when you describe the solution, then you can find the importance of the pattern. Then you can give an structure, and with the structure, you can give the form, you can give the shape of all your code. And with that, you can start to reusing the code. And at the end, you can have a code example. Actually, you can go and looking for, I don't know, maybe singleton in any language, mediator in any language, proxy in any language. So you can do that, and you can have the guarantee that the same result can happen in any language. Why? Because it's simple a pattern. It's a solution that is already tested. So one question here. Everybody use design patterns in your programming life daily? Raise your hand if not. No? More or less? Okay. Well, this is fun because sometimes maybe we saw that in the school. Maybe we didn't. Or maybe we saw that some nerd are using it and we say, no, it's too much for us. But we don't get noticed and we are using it. And believe me, this is really, really important. And if you invest a little bit of time trying to read about the design patterns, when you discover all the new words that you can find there, man, you can say, oh, what am I doing? So because you can solve many problems really quick. Okay, so a little bit of story where the patterns came. The patterns came from these books. Actually came from a building books. This is a book from 1977. And in this one, this is describing actually the environment. And what is the environment? Here is a park. Here is a building. Here is houses. And then repeat again the same. Repeat again the same. There is, I saw the other day on a diagram where you can see what is the cities with the most, that have most order in their structure of the city. For example, for surprisingly, Miami, it's a really ordered city in the structure of the city. Yes, but for example, if you go to Mexico City or go to travel to Lima, well, it's a kind of mess, okay? So this is a patterns that we find. But someday, these four guys, Eric Gama, Richard Helm, Ralph Johnson, and John Blythe, I'm sorry. Yeah, these guys one day decides to identify all these patterns, all the things that is go repetitive around the code. And actually, you can find these guys when this is using the name for the GOF. That's meaning I don't remember well done, the Gang of Four. Okay, the Gang of Four. If you are going and Googling the Gang of Four, you can find these guys. And actually, if you have the time to read this book or buy it or retrieve it in a library, go for it, because this is explained in the high level all the patterns that you can use it. And then you can find they have the structure and you can start to using in any language. Okay? So, what is the importance of that? Okay? In this importance, well, you probably, sometimes you will use it or not. Okay? So we need to keep aware of this because sometimes you will need it. If your application or the software that you are designing is really big, it's definitely you're gonna need it. But if you are doing something, a simple form for retrieve some data, well, I don't see too much value to using a pattern here. Okay? The other one is you can apply the patterns to any programming language. I'm sorry to insist of that, but it's the more easy part. But where? It's a toolkit. It's a toolkit, as I told you. You can use it and again and again and again. And this is the most fun part of this because this is defining a common language to speak across your team. Because when you are understanding that, you can start to speak in the design pattern language, and then you can start to talk and you can start to tell to the other teams or to the other members of your team, hey, you need to implement this pattern, or you need to use that pattern. Or do you remember when you are using the mediator, we can clone this behavior here, or because you are notice of that. You can create a common language to work, and this is something actually as we talk and we communicate with all members of our team, this become a part of that. Okay, haters gonna hate all the time, okay? And here, because there is many arguments against the design patterns. There is, I think so it's kind of similar as unit testing. Please raise your hand who don't do any testing. You don't do any testing there? Why not, man? It's so, yeah, why is it awful? But you know, it's a safety net. If you are doing a unit testing, it's a really safety net for you that can help you. It's really annoying, I know, it's really annoying. By the way, are you ever aware about Cypress? Are you ever try Cypress someday? Yeah, I'm gonna start to listen one podcast. I will share you with that later. But that podcast, they are talking about Cypress, and the creator of Cypress started to speak about that. Was really great. So I'm start to thinking to change from Jasmine and Karma to Cypress. It's really cool. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going back here. Okay. There is a kludge for a weak programming language. What is a kludge? Somebody know what is a kludge? No? It's nice of kind of dirty workaround solutions that maybe not works. For example, some funny. You are in your bike and then you pinch your bike. And then you know how to fix it and you need to keep continue. Then you use the bubble gum and put it in there. It's a kind of clunch. Okay? This is one of the arguments that the haters using the most. That say, no, this not work because it's gonna add more difficulty to my code. So I think so this is wrong because you need to really study and understand what the patterns are. And also they say there is inefficient solutions, but they already tried it. This is a big problem. It's the same with the unit testing. Everybody says, no, I used many time. I spend many time there using trying to do unit testing. So it's the same here. They saying there is inefficient solutions. But when you are using it, well, the use is unjustified, they say, because they say, no, it's not worth it, okay? So also maybe they say there is a lot for a piece of code. For example, do you remember this? Okay, there is a lot for stop that, okay? This is mirror for stop this. Yeah, there is a big tool, a big gun in the Marvel world just for only stop the Spider-Man 2P world. It's a kind of overwhelming there. So, that's supposedly gonna first. Haters gonna hate. I'm sorry. But okay, now we go into the classification of the patterns, okay? Here, do you remember this guy again? Okay. Why? Because here we can set that when you have the hammer, everything is a nil for you all the time. So, as I told you before, not all the design patterns works for all the solutions. That's the reason that you need to understand all the design patterns. I will share you in the last slide for here a website that I found Actually, from that website, I'm taking many of the illustrations of here, because that guy describes really, really great how a design pattern works. And also, he put a lot of samples of code about the design patterns in each language and in each pattern. So this is a really cool thing, okay? So in this classification, we can find there is so basic classification, high level, okay? So for the low level, we can use, also we can classificate that by the intent of the purpose, okay? Why? Because depends on what you needed is the classification. Actually, there is only a couple of classifications. I will show later. Okay, well, the basics of that in the low level is something similar to the interfaces and some structures that we are used to use often, but it's not something that's gonna change the goal of my project. It's more than a tool that you can use all the time, okay? But this is the most important, the high level ones, okay? In the high level ones, then I want to stop here. Those who are aware they are walking in darkness will never seek the light. Why? Because sometimes, as I told again, you are using design patterns and you don't get noticed. For example, who are working who are using now decorators in Angular? Everybody were using a decorator all the time. So you are create your own decorator sometimes? No? Yes? Okay, and this is cool. It's a design pattern that already exists, okay? So the first category of the high level is the creational patterns. That one is provide objects creation mechanisms to increase the flexibility and reuse the existing patterns. So this classification, this is the graphics that I told you that I took for that web page, yes? And we have first the factory method. Are you aware for the factory method? Everybody has created a class sometime. When you declare the constructor, yes, there are, okay? Then we have the abstract factory that focus more on a family of products. We have the builder and we have a prototype. Also, we have singleton, one of the most popular. Actually, when I have the chance to interview a new developers who want to join to the team, this is a question that I do to, hey, what is the design pattern that you are using with the service? And the most common answer is, no? That's because they are using it. They are creating. Actually, my previous question was, hey, can you please create an application that consume an API and just display the name certain value? And they doing very well, but they don't know they are using a singleton because they need to use a service for there, okay? So the other category is the structural patterns. And this is one of the importance because when you create one object, then you need to keep or you need to assemble all the objects. You need to maintain the communication between all the objects that you create, okay? So for that we have adapter, bridge, composite, the famous decorator, the decorator that we have in Angular here. We have the facade, flyweight, and proxy. The facade is one of the commons that I used to use when I work, for example, with NGRX. Why? Anybody here works with NGRX before? Yes, one, two, the other ones no? Okay, so where you are used to use the most? Well, you create your actions, you create your selectors, and then you start to share that across all their applications. And then if you start to using and trying to add a new module, you need to share and inject the store in that new component or new service. And then if you create a new module or new component, then you need to inject that. Now, try to test that. In every test, you need to inject the store too, and you need to make all the injections, and this has become really, really, really annoying. So, when you are implement the facade is a simple service who abstract all the actions. So, for if you are working with many developers, to the other developers, you can tell, hey, just consume all these services that is available in the facade. And the facade is the only one that can use all the communications to the store. And this is more easy way to use, okay? So if you implement a facade in that kind of way, it's really cool. So you can use it in other kind of way. For example, when you are trying to make a lot of connections or a lot of repetitive actions that can become really messy when you are working with your code, then you can implement a facade. That facade can abstract everything, and from there you can use all. So if you need a new action available for that, then you can only add in the facade. You don't need to add in every part of your code. So the facade is one of the hidden gems for the design patterns. Okay. The other one is the behavioral patterns. Okay, and this one is the one that take care of effective communication, the assignations of responsibilities between objects. Okay, and here we can find the chain of responsibility, the command, the iterator, the mediator. And the mediator is the one that I told you before, okay? Why? Because when you want to share a lot of data, you can set the responsibility to just one class to manage all the data between everybody. So you can see that the mediator has the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master in any Scrum team is the one who manages all the tasks that will assign to you. So when you finish, you go to him and tell, hey, man, I need more work. And the Scrum Master give you the priority and give you the tasks, okay? Well, you can take it for the backlog, but well, in the Scrum Master, it's more easy. Yeah, but well, here is the same. In the mediator, when an object finishes the work with certain amount of data, then take that data and then notify to the mediator, and the mediator can assign a new action to do, or can retrieve data, put data, or can send the data to the store. So it's a kind of similar way to work, okay? The other is the state. This is the observer. The observer is RxJS. So anybody here never used an observer before? No? Perfect. Okay, so we're using observers here, and with observer is only you subscribe to the observer, and then from there you can go one direction. And here just I want to make a kind of advice. Please remember to unsubscribe for all your observers. It's really a pain when you forgot to unsubscribe for one, and then you start to have to see in your log this memory leak that start to grow, and then node source start to increase his pay bill. So watch out with that. Remember, I had tried to keep a good practice. Also, I found the other day a decorator that you can inject. That decorator is a part of NPM library, and you can inject in your code, and that can manage all the subscribings that you have and close for you. So this is a kind of property. I will find it now in my Slack conversation, and I will share with you. Maybe that can work for you if you like it. Okay, the other one is the template method and the visitor. Well, the cool thing here, this is just a sample of languages. It's a couple of languages where you can find the code. And actually, this is the URL that I found. Yes, it's refactoring.guru /design patterns /samples. You can find all samples that we're using here, that I show you here for design patterns on each of the language. So doesn't matter if you're working with TypeScript in Angular, doesn't matter if you're working with Ruby, with Python, with C#, Java, etc. You can find that, and then you can use on it. Yes. So it's really cool, because from there you can understand all the code and all the steps through all the walkthroughs that has in this website is pretty cool. So from there you can find more solutions for your code. Okay, so now you can see all the time you're already using design patterns, and you never get noticed, right? Okay, so questions? Nothing?
Have you ever ran into a situation where you regretted using the design pattern?
What? Sorry?
Where you regretted using the design pattern?
Yes, when I started with small applications, and that was actually I was create an application just for a simple website for display the services for a franchise in Mexico, and just it was easy to me to start to using a mediator in there, but I don't need it. So the only thing that I add was a complex part, and I add an extra layer of complexity of my code. So I don't need it at that time. But I can tell in my defense that I was naive with the design pattern at that time. So from that, I'm learning and I'm start to study all the design patterns. So right now, I try to spend more time planning all my code, to try to planning all my components. And actually, I have a board where I start to drawing all my components in there, and just and try to find which patterns can apply in there. And from there, you can find it. But it's definitely, I regret one day to using it, but was worth it. Yeah, maybe if you're gonna go and having fun, go and using it, and 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 sure for fun. But if you want to have just a simple and tiny application and just want to deliver that, my recommendation is not use that. It's like the hammer, the Mjolnir. So there is no reason for that. But if you are aware that your application start to grow later, and maybe you start to detect, oh, I think my client will love this feature, will love this one. I am pretty sure that he's gonna contact me again for a new features. Then I can recommend you add that. Take your time for add the design pattern. Why? Because this work like on the mothership, then you can start to develop just only small ships in there and start to fit in there really easy. More question, guys? Yes. Well, the one that I use the most so far is the mediator, the one that I told you. This is one of the most samples. Actually, the mediator fix a lot of my common workflow because I'm used all the time to work with the NGRX stores. And the NGRX stores, then I using the facade in there, and then at the top I using the mediator, so I have two design patterns that involve on in all that process. So this is the one the most that I can tell you so far. The proxy, I use that just one time, but I don't want to talk about this. Okay, but that's two. One is one of the both that I'm using. My recommendation there is go and read more about the design patterns, and from there you can get more knowledge about that, and maybe you can start applying to you. Yeah. Some important here is you need to have the habit for refactor your code. Why? Because when you start to coding for the first time, then maybe you don't get notice about the design pattern that you want to use, okay, or that you need to use. Then you can create your code, and then when you finish and deliver that, please analyze your own code and make a refactor. Also, if you have chance to speak with your team and say, hey, we need to dedicate maybe one sprint or half a sprint just only for working the refactor, just do it. That works. Why? Because when you finish to work in all your code, maybe you can find the areas where that all your code can go more easy. Or maybe you can find when your application is getting slow in certain areas. When your application is getting slow in certain areas, definitely you need to implement a design pattern in there. Yes, well, I missed to say that because for me it's kind of where is there in Angular? Just I create one component and it's there automatically. Well. Okay, any more questions? No? You sure? Really? Okay. Well, thank you so much. I think so this is not too more long or short, I hope so. Well, I hope this worked for you, or if you have later more questions or you want to reach me for any help or something, it's my Twitter, this is my personal email, so you can reach me there. I'd be glad to help you. And also, just my recommendation is go and read this kind of stuff. Read about design patterns, read about refactoring, and please do testing. It's the kind of three things that most of the developers avoid to do, but really you don't have idea how that kind of thing works for you. Also, for example, right now, our code, it's really big. We have a big amount of codes. The computers is not too fast, so when you are doing testing, it's really cool just run the command line, do your testing, and never use a browser for testing your own code, even when you are a front-end developer. What a magic with that. So just my recommendation here is try to do these 3 things. It can improve your better life as a developer. Okay? Well, thank you so much, guys, for having me here. I hope this will like you, and that's all.
Okay, well, that's all we got. So thanks, guys, for coming. Feel free to hang out, socialize, network. We've still got plenty of pizza. We've got drinks. Help yourself. Restrooms are back this way. So, yeah, thank you all for coming.